super duper happy with that one, as you'd imagine. Obviously, I've just come back from the game. It's been a long old day, but at the end of the day, getting that 1-0 victory over them lot was very, very sweet, and a performance in a game that was quite tight. Was quite tight. I think for me, it felt at the game that, Moyes setting up out of possession in a 4-4-2 was defensive and lent to the idea that he didn't want to get picked off by Harry Kane dropping deep. He didn't want to be found out by Ndombele finding space, and didn't want to be found out by Heung-min Son getting in behind. So from the immediacy of seeing that, I thought West Ham are going to sit a little bit deeper here today. We did show in spells in those transitions in the first 20 minutes that we could be threatening. Ball over from the right-hand side, Fornals with an acrobatic nearly finish from that point of view. Antonio was getting into positions, particularly on the left-hand side, where he was causing Tottenham some issues. But thereafter, obviously, Spurs began to grow into the game. And then the frustration generally, or what I felt from the crowd, was West Ham weren't pressing enough. Now, discussing the preview about West Ham's pressing in this game, and Tony will know in the comments, he spoke a little bit about the higher line. And again, I felt that the correct thing to do was to not play a high line against Tottenham, was to sit slightly deeper. So I had a little bit of patience in that. I could understand where people felt that Tottenham could be pressured. You look at Eric Dyer, you look at someone like Højbjerg, you look at West Ham's chief pressers in there, someone like a Pablo Fornals, Michail Antonio, Declan Rice. Could we not win the ball high enough and then try and find the spacing beyond? Correct, that would have been fair to assume, but I felt we nullified Spurs. They had a real good opportunity, actually. I think it was from Heung-min Son or Ndombele when they broke free, and that came from West Ham getting out of that 4-4-2 shape. And so the threat was there. I did want to see more in the second half, in particular with the transitions. Now, going to that shape for the game made me think this is going to be a bit of a hark back to how West Ham have played previously. On the counter, we have to be fantastic in terms of carrying the ball. The passing has to be sharp. It wasn't today. It wasn't at the level that I feel that West Ham can play at. And I'm not really necessarily digging anybody out in particular, but Benrahma probably had the poorest game that I've seen him have in a long time. And I actually would have thought Benrahma would have thrived in that type of game. Pressure on him, ability to beat men, take them out the game, and then give West Ham the opportunity. And we know he can carry the ball and drive with it. So that I felt was a little bit disappointing. But nonetheless, this West Ham team's different these days. It's not like we're going to be out of the game if we're not looking too clinical. I felt as long as we were in it, and as long as we took our chances, and to be honest, I did feel that a set piece was going to decide it for us if we were going to do anything. We did create throughout the game, in fairness, a few breakaways. I look at Pablo Fornals, you look at Jared Bowen on the counter, could have been more clinical in those situations, 100%. So it was always going to be a case of, can West Ham take those opportunities in those moments? And really and truthfully, it was a little bit negative for the first 20 minutes or so of the second half. It wasn't quite what I would like. The ball retention wasn't good enough for me. I think there were real opportunities to get out that Spurs back four, and when West Ham did break with numbers, I think you did see there was a vulnerability there, which is why a lot of fans at the game were saying that we need to press a little bit higher because we can get out of them. Completely agree. But if West Ham had been a little bit sharper in those, maybe we would have got a goal earlier. But the threat was nonetheless still there. And I actually felt that there were certain players in that second half that grew into it. Listen, Deck's phenomenal anyway, but I feel that Deck took a lot of responsibility carrying the ball, driving us forward. I thought Pablo Fornals grew into the game, particularly in terms of pressing, the link up with Michail Antonio. We had to be better in that sense. If you're asking me from a tactical perspective, I think if West Ham wanted to play like that and try and beat Tottenham's shape, because Tottenham, what I saw was them playing Kane, Son, Lucas Moura and Ndombele very high, very, very high. And West Ham were comfortable enough in keeping the ball along the defensive line, but there just wasn't that availability from the attacking midfielders. And that's where I feel Pablo does deserve a little bit of credit, because I thought for probably 10 minutes after into that second half, he was starting to drop deeper. He was starting to link play. Deck was trying to force the issue. So that was really encouraging. Now, the delivery from Crest from the corner, because we have to talk about this, because I don't think this might get glossed over a little bit. The set piece itself, break it down and look at it again. Deck makes that near post run. Now, he's not going to win the ball for me. If he's winning it, he's simply flicking it on. So he's not really in danger. But West Ham were very, very clever. And of course, it relied on a lot of components being spot on in that. Deck making the near post run, Souček making the run, both of them dragging Spurs defenders out of the way, giving the space to Antonio. Of course, the ball had to be spot on from Cress, and Cress's delivery actually in the last two games has been fantastic. And West Ham's delivery from set pieces, we look at how many goals we scored last season, for me, has improved and has gone up. And that's where we've been nicking games and getting those 3 points. Mickey's movement in that sense around Harry Kane that was flat-footed, that didn't notice him, that didn't recognise the danger, was spot on. Now, I don't think Mickey had an unbelievable game today. I've seen him have better games. I've seen him and Ben Rama link up better. But, and this is the big thing about Mickey for me, this season, he can take a moment. He can turn up in a moment. And that's a real sign of a big player for us. Because even when it's not quite working, and even when Tottenham are forcing West Ham to go long, and you've got Romero diving about 5 feet over him. At times, I'm not sure how the ref hasn't blown up at points and Dyer doing that. It becomes frustrating. But Mickey's resolve, I think the side's resolve, but certainly Mickey's, and the quality that he does have within the box shone. And for me, once that goal went in, I felt relatively comfortable that we would see the game out, purely because Zouma and Ogbonna was so good. In particular, Zouma was absolutely fantastic. And both of them between each other in terms of reading the game, knowing when to sit back, knowing when to make that decision of going to win the header. I thought they were spot on in their decision making. I thought that Cress at times today, I probably would have expected him to struggle a little bit down that right-hand side. I was seeing more tackles from him in that sense. I spoke about his delivery a little bit more. Probably frustrating for him at times. The delivery seems to be improving. And then Ben Johnson, who is an interesting player because he played so well against Everton. He played really well against Genk, of course. I thought going forward, he wasn't as good as I would have expected. I don't think it's that type of game. But what I said in the preview was defensively, I'll back him positionally. Now, you look down that right-hand side, and this is where I think you've got to give credit to Bowen. I probably don't give Bowen enough credit because I actually think this season he's been fantastic in terms of the performance level. His positioning to protect Ben Johnson at times, whether it's inverted or going wide, and Ben Johnson vice versa, was fantastic. And you look at that left, and you look at that overload, and you look at Heung-min Son and Reguilon, we dealt with that very, very well. And Ben Johnson in particular. Now, I love Vladimir Coufal more than you can imagine, right? But for Johnson to step in for these past 3 games and perform at the level that he has done defensively in his natural position says we've got a real player. We've got a real player on our hands. And those last 20 minutes where West Ham, we were sitting deep, we were in the 4-4-2. In fact, we probably weren't even really in a 4-4-2. It was more of probably a 4-6-0 because Mickey was so deep and Manu was deep as well. Just carrying the ball, making the right decisions, beating his player. He's got a lot of qualities, Ben Johnson, as to why I think he can make it at this level, if it even really needs to be a question mark. But it does give me a lot of encouragement going forward. So I guess in that sense, it was a little bit of a stalemate type of game. It was a little bit of a chess match. It did come down to a moment. Of course it did. But like I've said, the past 2 weeks, West Ham have won from set pieces. I think we were better against Everton. I don't think we were at our best today. But there is a resolve. There is a shape. And Moyes in particular. It's tough, I think, for Moyes in a way because he went with that game plan. He could have pressed Spurs. He 100% could have pressed Spurs and may have got a goal or 2 off that turnover. What I liked about it was there was a resolve to play that game plan. This is how we're going to play. We're going to sit deep. We're going to get the shape right. We're not going to allow Tottenham to hurt us in wide areas. We're going to step back and have the opportunity to step back against the lofted balls into a Lucas Moura, Harry Kane. They couldn't get anything Spurs. They weren't able to build up the play. And even when West Ham relinquished that little bit of possession and allowed them to carry the ball, the gap between the midfield and the defence was like that. And he knew that because Ndombele would find positions, Son would find positions, Moura would find positions. So although it wasn't prime West Ham and it wasn't amazing to watch, it was in principle a good game plan. And this is West Ham's quality. And this is where West Ham can hurt you from multiple different angles. We'll have different games and different game plans of how we want to play. But it's a massive win. It's a massive win because getting 3 wins this week, we're unbeaten in Europe. We've got clean sheets galore in both the Prem and in Europe as well. We're nearly at 20 points. And we could be at 20 points by the end of October. That's nuts. And the more West Ham play with this intention, because I think that's what you can call it, and resolve, the better it will be. Because last season, it was a case of momentum. Could West Ham keep it going? This season, I genuinely think we can. I don't know where it stops necessarily. I think that if we can get Europe boxed off as soon as possible, again, that gives us options. I think that's almost imperative to do that, because if you can get options going into December, which is a huge month, we'll see where we lie. But it's so hard, and it's so enjoyable as a West Ham fan, because you almost have to go, you have to pinch yourself a little bit and think, hang on, we're a good side here. We're well coached. We're well organised. We've got resolute players. We've got top players that can compete in this league. We're a well-oiled machine. We can play in different ways. It is a joy to watch West Ham at the minute. So on that note, I'll leave it. Thank you so much for joining me. Subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy this type of thing. Like the video if you did enjoy this video. I hope you do, because we did beat Tottenham in a London derby today. In terms of content this week, we've obviously got the Carabao Cup, so I can do a preview on that and get stuck into that game. I'm sure there'll be a lot of changes. Aston Villa away on Sunday. We never stop playing on Sunday anymore. It's because we're with the big boys now, because we're playing in Europe. So take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your week coming up if you're working and whatnot. Take care, and I'm sure